You're here today for our webinar with Preservica and Gravity Union, active digital preservation that lives in Microsoft 365.
Good morning. I'm not sure where everyone else is from that is on the call, but welcome and thank you for joining us. So yes, my name is Leah Daniels. I am a digital transformation analyst with Gravity Union. I am one of their archivists and records management specialists. I am also an active member of ARMA Canada, ARMA International, as well as the Archive Society of Alberta. I started my kind of records journey with archives and have kind of diverged into records. So having that interest in archives and records management, I'm super excited for this partnership with Preservica and their Preserve 365 product. I do have a master's in archival and records administration from San Jose State. I am a recent graduate as of about a year ago, December 2024, I graduated. So this was my first September not going back to school. Pretty crazy. I did take the Archives Institute with the Archive Society of Alberta way back. They're still hosting it. It's a great course for anyone interested. With my master's degree, I am now considered a certified records analyst as well through the Institute of Certified Records Management, and my CRM is hopefully on the horizon. I will be going for that as well. I am always interested in learning and understanding new things. So I have undertaken a couple of certificates through Mount Royal University in professional management and leadership as well, just to help understand kind of the people side of kind of that change management process that we go about at Gravity Union here. I don't think I prefaced it, but I am located in Calgary, Alberta. So again, morning for me, I'm on mountain time, and yes, again, welcome everyone to our webinar, and I'll pass it over to Neil.
Hello everyone, excuse me, hope you can hear me okay. So I'm coming slightly less fresh and less qualified than Leah from the UK. It is currently 6 o'clock over here in the evening. I'm a pre-sale solutions architect here at Preservica, and I started in January of last year. So my specialization area is Preserve 365, and my background is Microsoft, like a stick of rock. If you cut me open, it will say Microsoft. So I spent 25 plus years in consultancy, pre-sales and architecture, specifically around Microsoft Modern Workplace technologies. And yeah, effectively, my role at Preservica is to try and help bridge the conversation between typical IT teams and then our historic archivists and records managers.
So here we are. What we will be talking mostly about is that active digital preservation and the integration and kind of that seamless marriage between kind of what we do here at Gravity Union and into kind of those long-term records that people are always kind of needing to access. So really focusing on that accessibility of long-term and permanent records. It's one thing to kind of have the records, but it's a whole other thing to be able to access them, especially when those file formats become obsolete down the line, which we know is happening more and more. It happens so fast. It's escalating in the amount of new technology that we're seeing. So this is what we are going to kind of focus on. So I will jump into introducing our new partnership. Gravity Union and Preservica have entered into a new partnership. For those who are maybe not familiar with who Gravity Union is, I'll give a brief kind of high-level understanding of who we are and what we do. And then I will pass it back to Neil to kind of talk about who Preservica is. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the details about what we mean by kind of that, what does that partnership mean for our clients or organizations looking at transforming their digital environment while also maintaining long-term records that are vital or just have long-term preservation needs. So the last 3 points, a unified playbook for preservation, what's new in active digital preservation, and those practical steps are where we're going to spend a lot of the time today in our webinar. Yeah. So earlier this summer, Gravity Union and Preservica announced our partnership. We are the only Canadian partner with Preservica right now, so we are very happy and proud to kind of hold that title. Um, it was This partnership was brought up through my connections while doing my master's through San Jose State. I used Preservica for some of my assignments, and then I thought this was a great kind of partnership that could happen with Gravity Union here, kind of doing the active, kind of that collaboration of content, and then people needing that kind of archival long-term storage. So we've come together and it's worked out really well. And this is kind of announcing that partnership and yeah, how we work together. We through this partnership. We are an authorized seller of Preservica's Enterprise and Preserve 365 solutions, enabling Microsoft 365 customers across Canada to implement and support their robust information governance strategies um, for high value long-term content while optimizing their digital environments for AI. Oops, I need to change slides. All right, so we also have recently published a blog post that provides a great overview of digital preservation. It is, it, I don't think it's too complex for maybe the people on the call who are familiar with the records and information management. But all the information is crucial, especially for anybody who works in more of those regulated industries and have more of those archival needs. Some people maybe just send their long-term digital or long-term content to the archives. Some people keep those in-house. So this can help for those people who are keeping them in-house. Again, you'll see that Amy has just dropped a link for you in the chat to review that blog post. All right. So again, not sure if everyone on the call knows who we are, Gravity Union are, but we are located out of Vancouver. I was going to say Vancouver, Alberta. That's totally wrong. Vancouver, British Columbia. So we are Canadian based. Our founder and CEO, Michael Schweitzer, founded it about, I want to say about 10 years ago. We are a boutique consulting firm focused on compliance-inspired solutions. So we're really interested in working with clients to maintain compliance and help understand those regulations and whether they're provincial or legislation to make sure that people are reducing risk for their overall solution for their overall organization. We are a Microsoft Solutions partner, and we have team members across Canada. So we do have quite a few of our team members located in Vancouver. We do have some people up north in Whitehorse. We have a wonderful lady that works up there. We go across all the way to the East Coast as well. So I'm in Calgary. We've got a lot of our project management team located in Ontario, and then we do have someone out on the East Coast in Moncton. So we are kind of spread out across Canada. We do work with clients from all over, multiple different industries, and providing the same types of solutions. But again, they're specific to each kind of client that we work with. We are also a content AI Microsoft partner. We are especially proud of this designation as we are one of 24 hand-selected, specializing in advisory services for purview risk and compliance space. Yes. Gravity Union has been around, again, like I said, for probably about more than a decade now, or just over, and we've successfully completed over 250 compliance projects and helped manage and migrate over billions of documents. We have also been designated as a great place to work for the last few years under different designations. So winner in technology, mental health, winner for startups as well. And we were also designated a great place to work in 2025 as well. I have no complaints so far. It's been wonderful. And yeah, hopefully we can continue up those certifications for great place to work and our clients moving on into the future. All right. With that, I will pass that back to Preservica or to Neil. Sorry.
Thanks, Leah. No worries. I like the way you premised it with it's a great place to work so far. Expectations of things to come. Yeah, so hi everyone. So just a bit of background here on Preservica. So Preservica have been around in the digital preservation space for over 20 years. We deal with organizations globally in most every vertical that you can possibly think of. So there's a few logos on the screen, but from national archives to national banks to federal organizations, state, local education, you name it. We've likely got at least one customer operating in that space. We as you can see from the some of the details across the bottom of the screen as well, we have we collect or manage the data for over 4,000 different organizations, and that culminates in a huge quantity of data with over 500 million collections. We do have offices in the UK and the US, and yeah, I'm coming fresh, not quite that fresh, from the UK at the moment. So this is it's quite a cheesy tagline, but we do see ourselves as the stewards of data. I've just noticed that the house across the way is shining a beacon of light into my forehead. Hopefully that's not too distracting. So yeah, to us, every file is precious. We see ourselves as data stewards for the millions of assets that we look after and manage for our organizations. Part of what we want to do is assure that the data that they keep with us is accessible into the future. So whether that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. And really, we do that by leveraging our secret sauce, if you will, which is active digital preservation. So ADP, active digital preservation, is our key differentiator, really. It's what kind of separates us from all of the other archiving or preservation type solutions in the market, and ultimately is what makes us the market leader. So active digital preservation is effectively kind of the process that you can see here and detailed on the right hand side of the slide. So we go through this perpetual kind of loop process of analyzing, migrating, and reviewing the data. So from the point of ingestion, we obviously we look at the data, we do all the fixity checksums, we make sure there's no viruses in it, and that allows us to effectively have a assurance that we have a fully working tamper evident version of the original file. From then we go through a migration process, so we will effectively service an access copy and a preservation copy of that original file, and we keep that all together. And again, it basically means that it's fully auditable from the original file all the way through the multiple copies that we serve to the users. And finally, we have a review process whereby we continually are ensuring that we have the latest readable copies of all of the various different files. And that means that we're constantly updating our database of I think we're up to around 2,500 supported obsolete file types now. So this kind of process happens in perpetuity, and really it is our secret sauce. In terms of migration, file path migrations, we have a typical set of templates that kind of are available out of the box, and that might take you from a WordPerfect file to a PDF, as an example. But we also have customers that need that migration pathway to be specific. So we have some US federal organizations that need to adhere to NARA standards, and that basically means that all different types of files need to be in a specific format, just so they can meet their kind of federal obligations. And why is it important? Well, there are, we kind of break it down into both business and technical reasons. So from a business perspective, there are there are large fines, and reputational damage is just one, I guess, to call out on. We have everybody's seen the news where you've got organizations that are kind of being dragged through the mud reputationally because there's been a data breach, or somebody's accidentally lost data somewhere. And as much as it becomes a business issue, ultimately they will lean on IT to say, what were you doing? What mitigations are in place to stop this from happening again? And ultimately, it's all very well and good keeping data, but how can you be assured that data is not going to degrade over time or just simply become lost or corrupt? And that kind of leads us into what data you have and where you should keep it. So backup solutions are great. They are a point-in-time backup, and it's a short-term solution, really. We would recommend, and I think typically market recommendations are you keep your backups for about a year. Historically, I mean, certainly when I was doing consultancy, it used to be like the child, father, grandfather type rights from a backup. But the issues with that is you have to keep tapes in very specific, controlled environments. Otherwise, they do tend to suffer quite highly from degradation. Another interesting fact that apparently 60% of all backups fail, and 50% of backups, recoveries from a backup also fail. I don't know whether that's 60% of the 50% or what, but yeah, I mean, statistics quite scary, really. So reliance on a backup solution is to say is fine from a bricks level. I want an email recovered or a particular file recovered, but it's not really a solution to rely on for the long term. That then moves into the kind of the medium long term strategy around archiving. So an example of an archive solution might be Microsoft 365 Archive. So it does some things really well, and it does some things not quite as well. So 365 Archive is a great solution. It allows you to effectively leverage a cheaper tier of storage than you might if it was your more expensive SharePoint type storage in this instance. It goes through a process as well of doing fixity checksums and having a level of assurance on data degradation of those files. But again, it's not a solution that you would place long-term data in. So data that goes in there, again, is not protected against file obsolescence. There's not the same level of protection against data corruption that we would certainly have in some of our solutions. And also there is a cost associated to the time to get the information out of that archive. So if you currently have to archive at a site level, if somebody wants a file out, that's a request to IT. IT have to recover the entire site, and therefore it's not quite as simple or straightforward. So again, it's a really kind of good middle ground. And then where we come in on the right hand side is that long term to permanent. So historically, we would see that 7 years into perpetuity. and we are a preservation first solution. So we kind of archive by proxy of the fact that we're taking in those copies, and then we're making an access copy and a preservation copy, which we can then serve back. But because of the nature of how active digital preservation works and the way that we leverage Azure instances in the background, it means that, say, we have more control and assurances around the fact that if you need to access that data in 30, 40, 50 years time, it will still be accessible, which is key. And again, like, so this slide is kind of a snapshot of the sheer quantity of compliance requirements that are out there. So there, most every organization, I think, has a compliant requirement of one form or another. GDPR is a huge one over here in the UK, and that I haven't even listed. But it's, I guess the short of this slide is there are compliance requirements absolutely everywhere. You may know about them, you may not know about them, but ultimately, what's the point in retaining your data if you can't access it? So if you have a legal requirement, or somebody comes in to audit you and requests some data, you manage to find that data, but then you can't access it because of corruption or it's an inaccessible file type. What do you do? Does that breach your compliance requirement? Are you likely to fail that audit? And that's just, effectively some things to think about. So what we've done here is just compile a few use cases that we're starting to see more and more frequently. So just to pick a couple out, and in no particular order, the last one, so unlocking the value of AI. AI is prolific in the workplace now. Microsoft are spending billions on Copilot and ChatGPT, and I think it is a fantastic, really useful aid. Copilot is brilliant. It really does help you kind of make your time more efficient and help you get started in some instances. The typical issue that we see when we're talking to customers, however, is how can we accelerate our adoption of AI, or I'll talk to Copilot in particular, because we're going to come on to the whole SharePoint thing in a moment. And the difficulty with SharePoint, and it is an organic data management solution. It's kind of, people have used it as a file share, and ultimately you'll end up with, duplicates of files or files here, there, and everywhere. And the main issue is that people in an organization will have permissions to open or read a file, but it might be hidden in a folder somewhere. So it's kind of that security by obscurity process where, historically it's fine, you can't see it, therefore you can't open it. But if you've got permissions to it and you do a search, I can absolutely guarantee you Copilot or an AI solution will find it and you will be able to access it. So, how can we help with things like the adoption of AI? Well, understanding your data, where it is, what it looks like, and being able to identify like the data that you need to retain for that compliance, security, governance type requirements, like we kind of showed on the previous slide. We can help by taking that data, putting it directly through Preserve 365 into our Preservica backend, and effectively that acts as a security demarcation point, so Copilot cannot gain access to that data. Users in SharePoint can still click on the stubs to access that data, and I'll show you that in a demo shortly. So from a user perspective, it's still searchable, it's still accessible, but Copilot cannot interrogate that data. It is a security demarcation point. Another good use case for AI, and again, I'll show you this in the demo, is I've written a Copilot Studio agent that helps me find data within a SharePoint site in this instance, and then helps me basically move it to the archive. And in our roadmap, because again, we understand the value of the data that resides within the platform. It is, all the assets that are in there are of high value. We are developing AI strategies which are very much off by default, and then a customer can choose to turn them on. And that are things like detecting PII and then being able to redact it, or being able to use generative AI and say, so as an example, we have the Transport for London is one of our customers. We host their data, and they have a public facing portal on our website that we host for them as well. So an example of how AI may work in that situation would be, find me an image or all of the images of the Queen opening tube stations in London between this date and this date, or this year and this year, and then it would go away and it would create that asset for you. So again, AI, fantastic stuff. One of the other use cases that is becoming more and more prevalent and popular is the ability to decommission legacy solutions as well. So SharePoint, fantastic, massive fan of it. But there are limitations. So limitations in terms of file size, file paths, characters. It's pretty good at taking most things in, but there are some limitations. So I think it's 250 gig for a file. So people are having to hold on to legacy solutions because they just can't get that data into SharePoint. So we have the benefit of being able to ingest that data directly into core Preservica, and we can support most all file types that aren't supported by SharePoint. But more importantly, in some instances, we have a theoretical file size limit of 5 terabytes. So a single file, we can ingest up to 5 terabytes. And ultimately, that means you can then go through the process of decommissioning those likely out of support legacy solutions. And in our product pipeline, we also are beta testing the ability to ingest data directly into the core and then be able to index that back into SharePoint. So you have the ability for users to continue to search and access that data, even though it's never touched SharePoint, in the same way that you would if it had gone through SharePoint. And I will show that in a demo shortly. I think I just saw a question pop up. I don't know if we want to leave the questions till the end or handle them as they come through, Amy or Leah.
I think, Neil, for this question, it's quite relevant. So we're asked, which country is the data retained, or where is the server location?
Yeah. So it's all. So basically, we use Azure instances. There's a few different options dependent on how big your organization is, how much data you've got, and how you want to surface it. But effectively, we're using Azure behind the scenes, so it's very much about data sovereignty. So we currently have Azure instances in the UK, for example, in the US, in Canada, and we are rolling it out into other regions on a kind of demand basis. So as we get the appetite in those organizations, we will roll it out. But yes, we certainly have them in Canada, US, UK, and other regions as well. So hopefully that answers that question. So I guess moving on. Perfect, thank you. So moving on, what's new in active digital preservation? Well, what is new is effectively Preserve 365. So we've taken all of that good learnings over the last 20 years, and we worked in collaboration with Microsoft to effectively, kind of build and develop what is now Preserve 365, and that's brought us some significant, some really good value add, really. So it embeds Preserve 365 is an embedded application, so it sits natively within the Microsoft 365 sphere. That means it allows us to use encryption at rest, encryption at transit, and like we've just mentioned, we leverage Azure storage behind the scenes. So all of the data is within the Microsoft ecosystem, and that means, as I say, security, speed, all of that kind of good stuff we can leverage. We also maintain the access control lists, or the permissions that are set on files. So as they are in SharePoint, they will come across to Preserve 365. And then in terms of people accessing that data, we have role-based access control. So we have a Preserve 365 move, a copy, and an administrator groups, and as long as they're in either the move or copy and they have the appropriate permissions to access that file, then they absolutely can. If they don't have permissions, they won't even see it at the point it's been moved. So yeah, really good. And we even continue to work with Microsoft now, and we're actually at a point where we're helping them develop their product, and there'll be some really exciting announcements about that later in the year. So what I'm going to do now, thank you, is I'm just going to walk through a demo, and I'm going to show you some basic functionality for a start. So the easiest, quickest way of getting engaged and working with the technology, through to slightly increasing complexity as we go through. So I'm going to just simply browse through a SharePoint site and select some files and folders here. And basically what you'll see is, because Preserve 365 has been installed, we have this little archive button here. You have this archive column here. And if I was to kind of right click or click the little three dots, and that expands out, there's an archive option there as well. So I've selected some files. I'm going to select the archive button. I get this toast pop out, and I quite simply, at a very basic level, can either copy or move to the archive. And at basic level, as I say, that's how complicated it gets. So I'm going to send to the archive. Basically what that's going to do is it's going to commit it. And if I go back, we can now see they're half populated, so they're going through the process of indexing. So I click it, it will tell you it's archiving. That's going through that active digital preservation process of doing the antivirus scanning, fixed checksums, making sure that the integrity of the file is good. And then ultimately, during this archival process, it will obviously render the access and the preservation copy. What we can see over here is they are URLs, and that is because stubbing is enabled in this site. So one of the benefits is that, if these were 20, 50, 100 meg or gig or whatever, we're effectively replacing that with an 11K stub. And the users, all they have to do is effectively click the file, browse to the same location, click the file as they're used to it, and it will open up and render that file as they expect. So moving forward, a slightly different take on the same thing. So what I've got here is a real media file, and if I try and open that up in SharePoint, it's just going to moan at me and tell me it can't do it because it doesn't know what it is. So you can see the archive icon here is fully lit, and basically what that means is we've taken a copy of this file. So we have an immutable point-in-time copy of the file that sits in Preservica via Preserve 365. So if I was to now click the file, drill out, click on the archive option, and then view the asset, it will launch our rendering engine in the browser, and hey presto, there's the video, the real media video. Obviously, it's only a clip for demo purposes, but you get the idea. So again, it's as simple as that. We've copied it, you click it, off it goes, it does its thing.
Before you move on, there was another, I think, quite relevant question. We were asked, can this archive feature be automated via an integrated retention schedule?
Oh, we're coming on to that.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
You beat me to it. Yeah, we're going to come on to that in the demo. No, all good. So if I type up here exec, basically what we do as well is Preserve 365 leverages the Graph API, and therefore everything that gets moved populates the indexes. So this is kind of like the default search index in SharePoint, where it brings back absolutely everything wherever it is. And you can see we've got these P's here. So this is the version that's in Preservica, and then you've got the kind of the other copy up here. So if I go to the archive tab, that will then filter out based on everything that's in the archive. And again, I can simply click it and it renders it, and it's as simple as that. So from a search and view perspective, users can either use the normal SharePoint search features because we're populating the index, or they can simply browse to the file and click it if it's a stub, or right click it and click view asset if it's a copy. Now on to Purview. So as timely, I could have planted that question really. But yeah, the benefits, the real benefit comes from driving automation, and it just removes that kind of increased potential for manual failure in terms of somebody supposed to go in and do something and either not doing it properly or forgetting. So we have full extensibility of Purview data lifecycle management labels. And the way that works is it takes an action, a move or copy action or none, based on the name of the label. So you can see here we've got 5 labels and they do various different things, from nothing to keeping files forever. So if I dip over to the Preserve 365 Admin Center, you can see that those 5 Purview labels are reflected in here. And they will automatically flow through as soon as you kind of enable that feature. So what we can see is, as default, they'll come in and they'll have no action assigned to them, so there'll be nothing. Some of them have had a copy action taken. So when this label is applied in SharePoint, when we're polling SharePoint and we see that label is associated to that file folder, whatever, we will then copy everything that label is attached to. In the same way, for the governance one, if we see it, we will simply move and stub back everything that's there. So if I set this archive permanent one to move, I'll save it, and then we'll drop back into SharePoint. So if I select all of these files and I am going to apply that label, save it. So basically, with a bit of magic, bit of demo magic, you can see that Purview's picked that up, and those labels are applying. And because we've got that archive move tag set in the background, it's going to archive all of these files. So driving automation through Purview, absolutely. You just select whatever function or feature you want in the background. And moving on from that is Power Automate. I absolutely love, in the sad and geeky way that somebody that works in IT would, Power Automate. It's a fantastic tool. We have 2 connectors that are approved by Microsoft and in the Power Automate store. That's a move connector and a copy connector. So what I've got here is a very basic flow I'm going to show you in a minute. It basically monitors a folder, and if anything's dropped in it, copied, created, it captures the variables of that data. It passes it through a condition, which is basically, is it a URL? If it is, then don't do anything with it. If it's not, if it's a file, then move on. It will then use the Preserve 365 Move connector, and following success, it adds the details to an Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet is, in this instance, is just something at the end of the flow, but you can obviously leverage that from Power BI if you want to send reports out to your organization in terms of who preserved what and when. So just to show you this in action, if I just drill through to a folder, I'm going to select all of these files and I'm going to move them to the folder that is being monitored. That is this one. So they've moved. If I now browse to that folder, there you go. So you can see they've all been moved there. they're all committed to the archive, and they've all been stubbed. And the last thing that I want to show you is the Copilot agent. So this is a Copilot student agent, and kind of behind the scenes, it continues to use the Power Automate connectors as part of like the kind of the storyboard that you pull together for it. So I'm going to do a metadata search. So in here, I've got an active card that you can put various details in it. So if I wanted to search for files that haven't been modified over a certain amount of time, as an example, I can do all that. In this instance, I'm going to search for a WordPerfect file, tell it to go, and it's going to basically search across the SharePoint estate, and it will bring back all of the WordPerfect files that are in there. So you can see it's just bringing back the file name, when it was created, who modified it, the name, and my department, which is out of Active Directory. So if I was to open the folder, you can see this particular file's there. So you've got some that have been moved and stubbed, and some that haven't. So if I was to click this, it will come up with the can't preview file typical error message. So if I dip back into the agent, I'm going to select a few files and do tell Copilot to preserve them. Copilot comes back and asks me if I want to copy or move. So there is a branch here within Copilot that is initiating either the copy Power Automate connector or the move Power Automate connector. And again, in this instance, I'm just going to do move because it's easier for demonstration purposes. And then it immediately comes back, says, well done, your asset has been preserved. And then I can open the folder. I can see that they're archiving. And now I can see that they're archived. Perfect. And equally so now, if I click the file that wouldn't render before, it's that stub again is opening up the browser, our renderer in the browsing session, and it's only a little document, so why it didn't take very long. But you can see it's rendered it through, all works perfectly, and it's brought across all of the metadata that was associated with that file as well. So that is it really from a demo perspective. And now,
Neil,
yes,
if you don't mind, there are a few questions that I think would be quite relevant given the demo you just gave. So if you don't mind, I'll ask a few of them. Okay, so we have a question. Does the archive replace the record in SharePoint so there's not multiple different versions of the record? If so, will the full text still show in the search results?
So we do OCR. So full text, as soon as we index the file, it's full text. So you can search on any piece of text that sits within that file. So normally one of the demos that I'll do is an Excel file, and it's called, I think it's China XLS, but inside it there's a column that says games. So that all works. So the way that a copy works is that it's an immutable point in time copy, and typically when things are committed to an archive, it's because they've effectively reached their end of life. So you wouldn't typically edit them anymore. We do have some customers that basically, so an example is a bank. They have they take meeting notes every time they have a board meeting. And what they'll do is effectively they'll copy those notes into the archive as soon as they're created. So they would have a purview label that sits on a folder. As soon as something drops in, it copies it. That means then from that point forward, they have a full audit trail from the version that sits in our archive. And then ultimately, if somebody does make iterations to the version that still sits in SharePoint, you can then take a delta at the point in the future. So what they actually do is they as soon as the file is created, they take a copy of it, and then they'll have a disposition process whereby in 3 years' time, they'll say, right, we don't actually want this in SharePoint anymore, so we're just going to fully move it, at which point they'll take another, it takes another copy of the file, deletes the source, then puts the stub back. So hopefully that answered your question in probably the longest way possible.
No, it was great. I think a follow-up here, which you kind of have answered, Neil, but just for the sake of it, what about the audit trail for Purview when we need to keep the record indefinitely?
Yeah, so we have full auditability. So literally everything is audited. Whoever clicks a file, who's committed it to the archive, when we take a copy, we have full audit trail. And so we have customers, so a Preserve 365 customer, off the top of my head, Amnesty International. So you can only imagine the kinds of files that they need to keep and ensure are fully auditable. And so they've obviously been through the full security process to ensure that it meets their requirements, and it absolutely does. So there are, with Purview, I know there are limitations. So Purview audits only last for a certain amount of time, I believe. I can't remember how many years it is, but ours will ultimately last the life cycle of that record. So for as long as those records sit within our archive, is as long as that audit trail will be there.
That makes sense. I think we had a comment come in that it was about 4 years potentially.
For Purview, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know it's quite limited. So I know there are we have another kind of partner we work with, and their specialty is effectively around Purview, and the fact that Purview doesn't give customers that full audit trail. So I knew it was limited. I just didn't know how long it was.
Yes. Okay, one last one before we hand it over to Leah, and then we'll get to the remainder of these towards the end of the session. If someone has enabled syncing with their computer and they delete the files in their cache, will that affect the files in Preservica, essentially delete the Preservica files, similar to how deletes automatically happen in SharePoint?
No, which is a good thing. So it's a one-way sync. So when the action's taken in SharePoint initially, and the other thing is as well, you have to have that role-based access control. So if somebody is like syncing down and trying to make changes on their local PC, it won't necessarily reflect. But if the file has either been copied or moved, it won't be able to take that action, because you just won't have that level of access to that file. And even if it is a copy and the original file resides within SharePoint and gets deleted, we still have that immutable copy residing in our archive. And worst case situation, you can't get it back from a backup. You can actually just download it and drop it straight back into SharePoint. So it can act as a kind of a point in time recovery solution as well. Not that that's what it's designed for, but in that instance, if you need it to get you out of a hole, then you could just download a copy of it and stick it back in SharePoint.
Thank you, Neil. That was great. So what I am going to talk about moving forward for a little bit is what we call a unified playbook for preservation in Microsoft 365. So how does Gravity Union and Preservica work together to solve these real-world challenges by aligning governance, retention, and access with day-to-day collaboration in SharePoint and Teams? So how do we kind of break this down? How are we providing this to our clients? So here, what we see is this visual. It showcases how we at Gravity Union go about implementing digital transformations and where Preserve 365 overlaps. It emphasizes aligning business goals with technology, leveraging AI and automation, ensuring compliance, and supporting users throughout this entire process. This approach is holistic. It covers everything from strategy to reporting to migration, archiving, and ongoing support, with a strong focus, again, on that compliance and future-proofing high-value content. Lost my mouse there. So one of the pieces I'd like to focus on is what we're calling that unified digital workspace. So Gravity Union consolidates various communication channels, project resources, and tools into a single intuitive interface, streamlining how users interact with their content. As users engage with this content, Preserve 365 is automatically ensuring that everything is preserved, categorized, and managed according to the policy applied. This with this automation, it helps reduce that kind of manual intervention or end user error. Also, users no longer need to juggle multiple platforms to maintain compliance, and this also reduces IT overhead. The integration of Preserve 365 removes that need for separate preservation workflows, so you're not, again, having to manage either different softwares or different workflows. Creating a unified digital workspace provides additional features and benefits like centralized administration, unified user authentication, and single pane monitoring, making support and maintenance more efficient. As well as enhanced analytics and reporting to help leadership identify trends, compliance risks, and optimization and optimize opportunities. Lastly, compliance is organically embedded into these daily workflows, eliminating the need for disruptive interventions. You don't have to stop something and then work on it. This seamless integration between the collaboration and preservation reduces cognitive load, making it easier for users to adopt and sustain good governance practices effortlessly. Regulatory compliance and legal holds. So many industries face strict data retention and privacy regulations, making robust compliance solutions essential. Gravity Union facilitates in-depth discovery sessions to identify sensitive or regulated content created throughout the organization. Preserve 365 automatically detects and applies retention schedules or legal holds to that regulated content, reducing compliance risks. So you have what you need and you don't have what you don't need. This tight integration between the collaboration and governance platforms ensures that compliance is not only maintained, but can be clearly demonstrated during audits or any type of reviews. When it comes to user experience and adoption, Gravity Union emphasizes user-friendly design and solutions, which encourages natural engagement across the organizations. We don't want to make work harder for people. We want to, in a way, automate or and simplify kind of those repetitive tasks. This creates effectiveness and efficiencies in all processes. Governance and compliance are embedded, again, into that user experience, so it's not an added step or an added complexity to their day-to-day work task. Preserve 365 does work kind of silently in the background, allowing users to focus on their tasks without worrying about any manual preservations or compliance actions. They just focus on what they need to do to get their day done. Oop, I see we're running out of time, but that's good. It's all good information. The last piece that I will talk about is a business continuity. So Gravity Union and Preserve 365, our processes work together to ensure that critical business information remains recoverable in the event of system outages, cyber incidences, or accidental deletions. For all of these things, it's not a matter of if it happens, it's just a matter of when it happens. So taking that proactive step is very important. These solutions provide built-in redundancy and backup features, safeguarding essential data, those vital records, those long-term records identified as having long-term value. Organizations benefit from these fast recovery capabilities, minimizing downtime and maintaining operational continuity. So the less time you're down means the less money you are losing. Just to kind of recap everything that I've said, and even just a little bit more, these were just a few of the pieces that we chose to identify. There are additional kind of points as to why Gravity Union and Preserve 365 work seamlessly together on our website that you can always go and review. But ultimately, why do we work so well together? We work together in providing a comprehensive information architecture within your SharePoint solution. We help provide that automated retention, reducing end user involvement. We future-proof solutions, so we're not always looking at what currently is going on, but also kind of what's going to happen and changes throughout the organization. We provide that expert support on both the implementation, digital transformation side, as well as that Preserve 365, and we also support in that strategic guidance implementation for organizations. I will pass that back to Neil now.
Look, we've got a lot of really good case studies, and again, I've just kind of thrown a few different verticals on the screen in terms of where we've added value. So you can see again, Amnesty International, I know I called them out earlier, but fantastic organization. And I say, I think it just goes to show how much trust organizations have in our technology, and that we're offering a secure solution that offers the whole security, governance, compliance suite and message. I would say at this point, if anybody on the call wants further case studies or to have a more specific conversation, by all means, reach out to the team at Gravity Union, and we can get you some information.
I think this final one is probably for you too. Can Preserve 365 help me understand which of the files in my SharePoint should be moved to the archive?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no. But that's why we have fantastic partners like Gravity
Union.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a trick question of how we work together.
That is absolutely in their wheelhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, we can help provide guidance as to what may be suited or works well for kind of, as Neil said earlier, kind of that 7 years or longer kind of retention. But it's ultimately based off your retention schedule and what that is saying you need to do with your record. So again, we can provide guidance and best practices and help you configure that. But that retention schedule is kind of the law of the land, and what we are also following when we configure Purview or whatever program and software that is being chosen.
If any of you will be at events coming up or traveling for conferences, both Gravity Union and Preservica will be at ARMA in Phoenix, so we hope to see you there. Leah and Neil, thank you again both so much. And thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.